Hello, my name is Pastor Kathy Kollar. I'm the pastor of Pleasant Valley Lutheran Church near Malabar Farm and St. Paul Lutheran Church in Lucas, Ohio. Greetings. We are reading through the Bible with commentary. We are in the book of Numbers. We are up to chapter 20, and we've been doing about 2 chapters a day, and we're up to 2 actually really key chapters that get referred to later as we read through the rest of the Bible. There will be people that refer to Meribah, which is the first chapter. So the people of Israel have left Egypt and are on their way to the promised land and have been told, no, you cannot go into the promised land because you didn't believe God. And now they're going to wander around the desert for a very long time. So chapter 20, the Israelites, the whole congregation, came into the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed in Kadesh. Miriam died there and was buried there. Now there was no water for the congregation, so they gathered together against Moses and against Aaron. The people quarreled with Moses and said, would that we would have died when our kindred died before the Lord. Why have you brought the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness, for us and our livestock to die here? Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to bring us to this wretched place? It is no place for grain or figs or vines or pomegranates. There is no water to drink. Then Moses and Aaron went away from the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting. They fell on their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the staff and assemble the congregation, you and your brother Aaron, and command the rock before their eyes to yield its water. Thus you shall bring water out of the rock for them. Thus you shall provide drink for the congregation and for their livestock. Which this had happened earlier when they left Egypt. As we were reading through the book of Exodus, this had also happened. So Miriam is Moses and Aaron's sister and really a co-leader, and she has now passed away. Verse 9, so Moses took the staff from before the Lord as he had commanded him. Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, listen, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock? Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water came out abundantly, and the congregation and their livestock drank. So, this is good. There's water. No problem, right? No. Verse 12. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me to show my holiness before the eyes of the Israelites, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. These are the waters of Meribah, where the people of Israel quarreled with the Lord, and by which he showed his holiness. So Meribah means quarrel. But somehow, with whatever it was that Moses did, now because he did that, he is not going to enter the promised land. And different scholars have different opinions about what was it that he did. The Lord said, speak to the rock, and Moses hit the rock, and he hit it twice. And he says, you rebels, we're going to bring out water, where perhaps he could have instead have acknowledged that God is a God who is loving and gracious and merciful and going to provide the water rather than doing it in anger. Nobody knows for certain. It's not exactly clear, but for whatever reason, Moses did not do it right, and now will not be entering into the promised land with the Israelites. Verse 14, Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom. Thus says your brother Israel. Why does he say brother? Because if you remember when we were reading earlier, Jacob and Israel, Jacob's other name was Edom, which means red, because he bought a bowl of stew from his brother Jacob, whose name became Israel. So both of them changed their name. Esau became Edom, and Jacob became Israel. I think I said that wrong earlier in the video. Anyway, so they're saying, hey, brother, cousin, let us through. Let us pass through. Thus says your brother Israel, you know all the adversity that has befallen us, how our ancestors went down to Egypt, and we lived in Egypt a long time. And the Egyptians oppressed us and our ancestors. And when we cried to the Lord, he heard our voice, and sent an angel, and brought us out of Egypt. And here we are in Kadesh, a town on the edge of your territory. Now let us pass through your land. We will not turn too many pages. We will not pass through field or vineyard or drink water from any well. We will go along the king's highway, not turning aside to the right hand or to the left hand until we have passed through your territory. So from the ruler of the Israelites, the leader, to the king. But Edom, meaning the king, said to him, You shall not pass through, or we will come out with the sword against you. The Israelites said to him, We will stay on the highway, and if we drink of your water, we and our livestock, then we will pay for it. It's only a small matter, just let us pass through on foot. But he said, You shall not pass through. And Edom came out against them with a large force, heavily armed. Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through their territory. So Israel turned away from them. So Edom is sort of south and east of Israel. Verse 22, They sent out from Kadesh, and the Israelites and the whole congregation came to Mount Hor. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron at Mount Hor on the border of the land of Edom, Let Aaron be gathered to his people, for he shall not enter the land that I have given the Israelites, because you rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and his son Eleazar and bring them up to Mount Hor. Strip Aaron of his vestments and put them on his son Eleazar. But Aaron shall be gathered to his people and shall die there. So gathered to his people is an expression to mean to pass away, and part of the reason that they use that expression is because a person would be buried, and then a year later the bones would be collected and put into an ossuary, a box designed to hold bones, and you would have more than one person in an ossuary. You would have all of the family. So to be gathered to his people, literally he dies, his body rots, the bones are gathered together with the rest of his family in one box. So, and remember, Aaron has very elaborate high priestly garments, blue robe and a medallion and a turban and the ephod and all kinds of things. So all of those are getting removed from him and put onto his son Eleazar. Moses did as the Lord had commanded. They went up to Mount Hor in the sight of the whole congregation. Moses stripped Aaron of his vestments and put them on his son Eleazar, and Aaron died there on the top of the mountain. Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain. When all the congregation saw that Aaron had died, all the house of Israel mourned for Aaron 30 days. I am also a hospice chaplain in addition to being a pastor, and it is never that simple for someone to simply just, okay, we took all the clothes off and then he died. We never know how long a person's going to last, how long it's going to take to die, or when they're going to die. That's, to me, the most amazing part of that whole story is that, actually. Chapter 21, the bronze serpent. And this is a relatively important passage because when we get to the New Testament, they're going to say, just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so Jesus gets lifted up. So this is what they're referring to, is this story here. Chapter 21. When the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who lived in the Negev, heard that Israel was coming by way of Atharim, he fought against Israel and took some of them captive. Then Israel made a vow to the Lord and said, If you will indeed give this people into our hands, then we will utterly destroy their towns. The Lord listened to the voice of Israel and handed over the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their towns. So the place was called Hormah, which means destruction. Verse 4. From Mount Hor they set out by the way of the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom, but the people became impatient on the way. So they can't go through Edom, they have to go around Edom, and it's taking some time. They have to go the long way. The people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we detest this miserable food. There's no food, and we detest the food, because we do have food, but we don't like the food. It's manna, this amazing miracle from God, but we don't like it, because it's every day and it's boring. Doesn't that sound like humans? Verse 6, Then the Lord sent poisonous serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that many Israelites died. The people came to Moses and said, "We have sinned by speaking against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord to take away the serpents from us." So Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said to Moses, "Take a poisonous serpent, or fiery, again, very ancient Hebrew, whatever the word is, serpent, and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten shall look at it and live." So Moses made a serpent of bronze, and he put it on a pole, and whenever a serpent bit someone, that person would look at the serpent of bronze and live. So Israelites complained again. Serpents came and bit them. Then they built a pole, put a bronze serpent on the pole. If they get bit, they can look at the pole and they will not die. And later on in the New Testament, we are going to hear how Jesus is like the serpent on the pole who has been lifted up. And when you look up and look at Jesus with faith, then you will not die. So all of the Jewish people would have known that story and been able to relate to it. Verse 10, the Israelites set out and camped in Oboth. They set out from Oboth and camped at Ayabiram in the wilderness bordering Moab toward the sunrise. From there they set out and camped at the Wadi Zered. From there they set out and camped on the other side of the Arnon in the wilderness that extends from the boundary of the Amorites, for the Arnon is the boundary of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Wherefore it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord, Wahib and Suphah and the Wadis, the Arnon and the slope of the Wadis, that extend to the seat of Ar, and lie along the border of Moab. So we heard about the Moabites and the Ammonites way back in Genesis. Abram, who became Abraham, had a nephew named Lot, and Lot's two daughters wanted husbands and couldn't find any, so they used their dad in a terrible way, became the father of the Moabites and the Ammonites. So as far as the Jewish people were concerned, very suspicious how they came to be, but they are entire countries also. Verse 16, from there they continued to Beer, that is the well of which the Lord said to Moses, "Gather the people together, and I will give them water." Then Israel sang this song, "Spring up, O well, sing to it, the well that the leaders sank, that the nobles of the people dug, with the scepter, with the staff. From the wilderness of Mattanah, from Mattanah to Nahaliel, from Nahaliel to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley lying in the region of Moab by the top of the Pisgah that overlooks the wasteland." So they are traveling along. Verse 21, then Israel sent messengers to King Sihon of the Amorites, saying, "Let me pass through your land. We will not turn aside into field or vineyard. We will not drink the water of any well. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed through your territory." But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his territory. Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel to the wilderness. He came to Jahaz and fought against Israel. Israel put him to the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, as far as to the Ammonites, for the boundary of the Ammonites was strong. Israel took all these towns, and Israel settled in all the towns of the Amorites, in Heshbon and in all its villages. For Heshbon was the city of King Sihon of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab, and captured all his land as far as the Arnon. So the Ammonites had captured land in Moab, and then the Israelites came along and said, "Can we please go through very nicely?" And they said no. So then they fought them, and then Israel took over this whole area. Therefore the ballad singers say, "Come to Heshbon, let it be built, let the city of Sihon be established. For fire came out from Heshbon, flame from the city of Sihon. It devoured Ar of Moab, and swallowed up the heights of the Arnon. Woe to you, O Moab! You are undone, O people of Chemosh," that is the god of Moab. "He has made his sons fugitives and his daughters captives to an Amorite king, Sihon. So their posterity perished from Heshbon to Dibon, and we laid waste until fire spread to Medeba." Thus Israel settled in the land of the Amorites. Moses sent to spy out Jazer, and they captured its villages and dispossessed the Amorites who were there. So in the land of the Amorites, there's a whole section that the Amorites had taken from Moab, and then the Israelites came along and took that section from the Amorites. Verse 33. Then they turned and went up the road to Bashan, and King Og of Bashan came out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to Moses, "Don't be afraid of him, for I have given him into your hand with all his people and all his land. You shall do to him as you did to King Sihon of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon." So they killed him, his sons, and all his people, until there was no survival left, and they took possession of his land. So that is chapter 20 and 21. I think that's enough for today. The Israelites have traveled and are starting to travel around the wilderness with some victories, and some times where they're still whining and they're still fussing. The waters of Meribah will be referred to when we get to the New Testament. The quarreling that they had, and how Moses did not do it exactly how God said to, and somehow that has had these terrible repercussions that Moses could not enter the promised land. And the bronze serpent being lifted up on a pole, we will hear about when we get to the New Testament, and Jesus being lifted up. The word crucifixion was such a terrible, shameful, awful death that polite people didn't even say crucified. So there's a lot of places in the New Testament where crucifixion is referred to as being raised or being hung on a tree, because they don't even say the word crucifixion. It was such a horrible thing. So they'll say, just as the serpent was lifted up, so Jesus was lifted up. And just as the people who look to the serpent would live, so we who look to Jesus will live and have eternal life. So now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord look at you with favor and give you peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go in peace, serve the Lord. Thanks so much for being here. Like, subscribe, comment, or don't. We're just so glad you're here. We appreciate you being here, but doing those things does help my brand new little channel. So thank you. Have a great day.